All right, so let's kick off the webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining us. We are the Palo Alto Education Services team, and we are really excited that you have joined us for this fun 1-hour PCNSE Technical Interactive webinar. My name is Danya, many of you already know that, and I will be launching this session today, but with me is my wonderful team members, Melissa and Alex, but we also have a special guest, Hank, who is part of the Education Services team as well. We're thrilled to have you. I do want to mention that this webinar will be recorded and your questions will be posted, answered on our LinkedIn page in the next week or so. Please look for the 50% promo code that we will be posting on this webinar, and it will be effective as soon as this webinar is over. So you can register for the exam for an online proctored session, and you can get it at a 50% discount. Also, I do want to mention that we're excited this time to give away 10 free vouchers for the PCNSE exam. Alex, at the end of this webinar, will be announcing the winner. So what she's going to do is watch over all the attendees and throughout the session, take notes of who is attending. And at the end, she will randomly pick 10 people and we will announce their name. She will email them through or direct message them through LinkedIn tomorrow on their with their voucher code. So again, thank you for joining us. We're really excited to have you. So let's talk about what today's outline looked like. Slide up. Next slide, please. So today we will talk to you about the value of certification, why it's important to get certified. We'll share with you our current portfolio at Palo Alto, and we will focus on the PCNSE information regarding the exam itself, how you can take the exam, if you pass it, what you earn, and how long it will be valid for. Then I will pass it on to Hank, and Hank will lead us into a very interactive session where he will share with you some bits and pieces on information about the PCNSE, but also give you an opportunity to take some questions that we have on the exam as sample and really entertain the answers you have given. He will give you the right answer. He'll explain why the answer is correct and why it's not correct to pick the other distractors. We will close our session with resources. We always want to make sure you have available resources for you to study and to prepare for the certification. We will also announce the promotion of 50%, so you will get the code for that. And last but not least, we will announce the winners. You have a Q&A box, and you will be you're more than welcome to actually put in your question, and we'll try to answer them as we go throughout the session. However, if your question is not answered, we will certainly collect all the question, answer all the question, and as I mentioned earlier, post the webinar recording on LinkedIn with the questions answered within a week. So again, we're really thrilled to have you. This is our outline today, so let's go to the next slide. Let's talk about the value of certification and why, if you are not certified, you would want to be certified. Next slide, please. Although I understand many of you here in this session are looking to get certified with the PCNSE, we want to remind you that our certification portfolio at Palo Alto covers more than the PCNSE. The value of certification is very important not only for employees, but also for employers. What we have done is do a survey, and we conduct a survey on an annual basis with our testing vendor. We also watch for surveys in the industry, in the IT market. And we noticed that cybersecurity IT certification are one of the top certifications to earn. And what it does, it gives more credibility to you when you apply for jobs. It allows you to grow into your position. It allows you to be more competitive in looking for new jobs. And it also allows you to do better in your job after you have validated your knowledge, skills, and ability. We have received feedback from employers that they prefer to hire people who have been certified, whether it's PCNSE or any of our certification, because they have validated that people perform better on the job as soon as they hired. So many of you might notice that a lot of employers nowadays on LinkedIn or any job boards are asking for certification as you apply for the position. So we highly recommend that if you are not currently certified, that you utilize that opportunity with the 50% off today and actually sit for a certification exam, whether it's PCNSE or not. I will tell you, we will have following multiple webinars in the next few weeks for other certifications. So if you're interested in other ones, you can also sit for similar webinar as we're doing today, focused on those certifications. Next slide, please. Let's talk about our current portfolio. In the next slide, please, Alex. You'll notice that we have different certification for different levels. We do have an entry into profession certification with the PCCET. This entry into profession actually covers multiple technology from the foundational level. It covers our cloud, it covers our automation certification, and it also covers firewall with the PCCET. So if someone is entry into profession cybersecurity, PCCET is the right certification for them. Or if they are recent into their job and they have not been in IT before, this will be the perfect certification for them. As someone grows into their role, we do have administrator level certification with the PCNSE on the firewall side. We also have the PCNSE, which is the focus of this presentation. Just recently, back in November, we have introduced 2 new certifications in alignment with the Palo Alto vision and strategy to grow our portfolio into cloud and automation. The PCCSE, Prisma Certified Cloud Engineer, was introduced back in November and now available for people to take it. We also have the Palo Alto Certified Security Automation Engineer that is currently also available for you to be able to take it. Both of those 2 new certifications we will have webinars for in the next few weeks. So if you're interested in the cloud or automation, please sign up for our webinars coming up, and we will also have promo codes and we will have winners for free vouchers as well. And the focus of those 2 sessions will be specifically to that specific certification. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about specifically the PCNSE. The exam itself is 19 minutes. The exam is ultimately covering around 75 questions. Those questions are multiple choice. They could be scenario with graphic, they could be matching, but we certainly don't have any simulation. We offer that exam in both English and Japanese. And you certainly, as an English as a second language, if you choose to, you can ask for an extension of 30 minutes above and beyond the 90 minutes that the exam offers. When you earn the PCNSE, next slide, please, you will be able to receive a badge. You take the exam, you pass the exam, and then when you log into CertMetrics, which is where our database, you can download a badge. That badge allows you to position yourself for employers. You can put your badge on LinkedIn. You can put your badge on your digital resume, and certainly be exposed to other jobs that are asking for the PCNSE exam. Of course, your certification will be valid for 2 years. So for 24 months, you don't have to retake that exam. We encourage you fully to retake that exam so you can continue to be active and abreast on the new technology. So although you get certified and you pass, that is not the end of it. You have to recertify every 2 years. If you fail the exam, God forbid, it's not the end of the world. You can retake it in 5 days. And if you failed it again, you can retake it in 15 days. We are certainly here to help you. We have a lot of documents and resources that allow you to study for the exam. Hank will speak to that, and Melissa at the end will also give those resources at the end. Next slide. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Hank Jensen. Hank has been with Palo Alto for the last 7 years as a senior instructor. He is in the Netherlands, and he focused on the EMEA region. He also has over 20 years of experience, and I'll put them, 2 decades of experience in the IT security space. And we really are thrilled to have him here to walk us through this interactive session. So Hank, take it away.
Well, thank you, Dania. Hello, everybody. Happy to see you here in this webinar. Yeah, more than 270 attendees and a lot of questions already coming in. I hope the team can keep up. Let's focus a bit more on the exam itself now and zoom into what you can expect there. So let's go for PCNSE information. So first of all, what is PCNSE? Okay, well, you can read it right here. It's the Palo Alto Network Certified Network Security Engineer certification, and it validates that you have the knowledge and skills required to design networks, deploy them, operate them, manage them, and troubleshoot them, as long as it's about Palo Alto Networks. Okay, so only Palo Alto Networks is the topic. All right, next slide, please, Sarah. My suggestions, if you are preparing or thinking about starting to prepare for PCNSE, is number one, to focus your studies on the firewall. As you saw in the previous slide, PCNSE is all about the Palo Alto Networks next generation firewall. And also make sure that you understand its default behaviors. Simple things like know that there are two default rules in the security policy of the firewall that allow traffic as long as it's within the same zone, or that block traffic if it tries to cross in between two zones. That is good stuff to know. All right, so the default behavior is a good thing to have. Also, try to pick up some of the command line basics. Now, the Palo Alto Networks firewall has a heavily used graphical user interface that most users will use for daily management and configuration. However, especially for troubleshooting, of course, the command line is still very valuable. And there will be some questions about that in the exam. It is not the focus of the exam, but it does help if you get some basics about that command line under the hood before you come to the test. Talking about the test is focusing on trying to find out if you understood how the box is working, not if you memorized every single setting. Of course, there will be questions that will task your memorization of some stuff, but we try to be fair, okay? And the last point here, my last suggestion, is that you should be aware that the Palo Alto Networks next generation firewall is a part of a bigger platform story. And it does make sense to know about that. Now, we don't have the time to set up that whole story here, but if you go to our website, you will find it. What you should try to get yourself is a picture of how all the Palo Alto Networks products work together and how they cross over, how they talk to each other. All right, if you can get that into your skin, and that's enough. You don't need to know the details about the other products, but it is helpful to know how, for instance, the firewall can talk to Cortex XDR. So it's an HTTPS connection, and Cortex XDR is our endpoint solution. So things like that, okay? Get a little bit of understanding about our other products and maybe how they interact with each other. All right, next slide, please, Sarah. If you then dive into the firewall a bit more, then here is a list of topics that you surely should not miss. Okay, let's just go quickly through them. So security policies and security profiles. When I started with Palo Alto Networks, this actually confused me for the first couple of days. There is a difference between a security policy and a security profile. Security policy contains the rules that define to the firewall what traffic is allowed and what traffic should be blocked. A profile allows you to configure an additional step of security on the allowed traffic. What happens if we see a virus in the allowed traffic? Okay, that's what you can configure in a profile. Oh, we want to stop that virus. Good. Then you have to tell us. That's why the profiles are there. Also, keep an eye out on authentication. There are two sections when you talk about authentication on the firewall. There is one where you talk about authentication for administrators. So those of you who can manage the firewall and how can they authenticate. And there are many options for that. So make sure you get a good picture of that. But there is also the possibility to talk about authentication for users who want to send traffic through the firewall. All right. So both on the management side and on the user side, there is an authentication component, and you should get a good picture of that. Decryption is mentioned next. Our firewall is capable of doing decryption for incoming encrypted traffic, for security policies, security profiles, and a lot of our security tools to work. We need to see clear text traffic. So if the traffic is encrypted, we want to decrypt that. We do not do that by default, but you can set up policies to allow the firewall to decrypt certain traffic, or maybe all traffic, which might be illegal depending on where you are in the world. And decryption, of course, then becomes a very important topic. So you better know how it works. As part of decryption, you will for sure run into digital certificates. I was actually amazed the amount of digital certificate questions I got in my last PCNSE exam that I took. Yeah, I have to pass that exam every 2 years, just like you guys. I was amazed about the amount of questions. So please be aware the Palo Alto Networks firewall himself can act as a certificate authority. And of course, that comes with a lot of topics like generating them, signing them, and so on and so on and so on. So look into that. HA is short for high availability. Palo Alto Networks firewalls do have 2 options for high availability, active-active and active-passive. So look into those topics. API, an application with programmable interface, is on our operating system. And it is a good idea to know a little bit about it. You don't have to go into every single detail about it, but just to get a high-level overview of the API is smart. Also, look into the topic of bootstrapping. Bootstrapping is where you boot up a firewall and it automatically starts requesting for license, registers with a centralized management system, downloads its configuration, upgrades its operating system, and so on, all without user intervention. There is a system for that. Again, you don't have to go into every single bit, but make sure that you do understand how that works at a higher level. Of course, as with any firewall, site-to-site VPNs are important, IPsec, things like that. A couple of crown jewels from Palo Alto Networks, of course, application identification, user identification are important. Logs are stored locally on the firewall, but can be forwarded out of the firewall to an external device. That could be our own Cortex data lake in the cloud, where we can store that as a service for you. Look into that. Log forwarding is an important topic, and it doesn't happen automatically. You have to configure something. Zone and dust protection are topics in the denial of service section, more on the networking type of attacks. Look into those. Quality of service. Our firewall is capable of doing that, and that's actually the reason why you can hear me so clear, because my 4 people, the other 4 people in my house are all over the internet right now, but hey, I have half of the bandwidth my provider provides us. The firewall comes with a dedicated management plane and data plane, MP and DP. So look into the hardware architecture of our firewalls. You can find it on the internet, and there is information, especially in the troubleshooting training about it. That's an important topic. The single pass architecture is what makes our firewalls so reliable when it comes to performance, because we do not have to loop packets multiple times through the firewall for processing them. It happens all in a single pass. So that's an important concept to read about. The license system is important. We do not send out a firewall with every single feature enabled, and there are licensed features, so it's smart to have a good overview of what license does what. And of course, when a firewall reaches your location, it probably does not have the latest operating system, and it does not have the latest updates for all the dynamic updates, as we call them, the databases that it needs to provide all the securities. So make sure that you know how to upgrade a firewall. Wildfire is our sandbox in the cloud, although if you tell it to a Wildfire product manager, it probably gets you slapped if you say it like that, but make sure you get a good understanding of what Wildfire does. It's a big interaction point in between all the Palo Alto Networks products, and it sort of makes the unknown attacks into known attacks. And from there, we can then start blocking those using signatures in the antivirus database, using entries in the URL database, and so on. Network address translation, of course, is an important topic in every firewall. And in ours, especially, pay attention on how it works with the combination of network address translation policies and security policies. That to some people is confusing. So if you build a NAT policy, we do not automatically create the security policy with it, and vice versa. You have to set up both manually, and the way that that works is sometimes a bit confusing if you come from a different vendor, especially when it comes to destination NAT. So careful with those topics. They are pretty well known as a trap. And the last bullet here, Global Protect. Global Protect is our remote access VPN solution. And it's supported in every firewall without any need of additional licensing. So a valuable tool to have as a firewall admin. But of course, that also means you will get questions on a PCNSE exam. All right, let's move on, Sarah. Next slide. I did a seminar like this like 2 weeks ago in our internal SE summit, and one of the attendees made a remark saying, without panorama knowledge, you will not pass the PCNSE. And he's right. So although PCNSE is focusing on the firewall, Panorama is our centralized management system, and you should know what it does. All right, so if you look at this slide, which is actually taken out of the Panorama training class, all the topics on this slide should be familiar to you. If there is something in there where you say, ooh, device group, what is that? Well, that is how Panorama manages the security policies on the firewalls. If you don't know that, you have some work to do. Okay, good. Let's move on. Sarah, next one, please. So how do you prepare for PCNSE? You saw that we have multiple certifications. Daniel showed you that a couple of minutes ago. I want to stress that the other certifications are not mandatory to pass before you can go to PCNSE. You can jump into PCNSE directly. No need to first take one of the others. However, there is some overlap. So what I normally tell people is, hey, split your preparations up in 3 phases. In phase 1, you take the suggested training. You can see that training here on the right. There's a firewall training, there is a panorama training, there is an optimized firewall training, and there is a troubleshooting firewall training. You can take those classes from our authorized training partners, or you could use e-learning in our Beacon or FlexLearn learning systems, where a lot of these topics are available. Also, during this period, you should get hands-on experience. We recommend to have about 6 months of experience before you start trying for PCNSE. If you did the classes, if you did your learning, you got your experience, then next we have a great PCNSE study guide. So review that, and then take the practice exam. I highly recommend not to start with the practice exam, but take it like over midway of your preparations, because at that point it will give you a good indication what topics you still have to review. Review those, and you're almost ready. The last point I always recommend people who want to go for PCNSE is to keep reading, and especially always read the latest new feature guide from the PAN-OS operating system. Why? Well, because the PCNSE is renewed constantly. And of course, if the certification team is asking subject matter experts for new questions, what do these people do? They take questions from new features. So it's a good idea to keep an eye on the new features. And there is a complete document for that available on our documentation website. Links to all of this will be provided at the end of this presentation, so don't worry. Good. After all of that, you probably are ready for the exam. You register. You might have a couple of days or even weeks where you are still waiting for the exam to come up. Keep your eye on the ball, keep reading, but also rest a little bit, okay? Doesn't make sense to go there without sleeping. You should be well rested, and you should have given your body and your mind some time to digest all the information that you took in. All right, and then you take the exam and hopefully you pass. Sarah, next slide. Good. Now, to give you a bit of a feeling what you can expect in PCNSE, I have some questions for you. Now, we'll show these questions. You have about a minute to answer, okay? And we'll have about 10, 15 minutes to play some quizzes here. You will see a screen popping up, which will allow you to answer the question. You just have to remind your own answer, okay? We will not keep track of who is doing what, but it's just to give you an idea of what type of questions you can expect. All right, let's go and let's start the questions. Sarah and Joelle, kick the polling off. Yes, there we go. So which type of NAT supports oversubscription? Source NAT, destination NAT, port forwarding, U-turn NAT. Five more seconds. 3, 2, 1. All right. So what was the correct answer? Sarah, next slide. Source NAT, yes, and majority, actually 41%, had that correct. Yeah, so oversubscription is the principle that one source IP address and source port can be used multiple times for different targets. And in source NAT, we use that, and actually almost every firewall in the world does that. We have the advantage that we actually allow you to configure it how you want to use it. Good. Yeah, destination does not have oversubscription, port forwarding, and U-turn NAT neither. So those are all distractors. Next one, please. Question 2. What does a security profile do? Now, if you paid attention, you know. It enables single pass parallel processing. It enables content scanning. It identifies what action to take. It enables auto closing of ports. Ten seconds. 5, 3. All right, there we go. The answer, of course, is yes, number 3. Oh, very good. More than half had this correct. Yeah, it is tempting to give answer number 2, enable content ID scanning, but actually our firewall is constantly doing that. The profiles then determine how the firewall acts upon the findings. Okay, so all the traffic which is allowed by the security policy, remember, is then with the help of the security profile checked to see what happens to this traffic. But the profile does not send it into the content ID scanning. That is just happening automatically. You can even not switch that off, although there is a little trick, of course, but officially you can't. All right, let's go to the next one. Question number 3. Which of the following allows an admin to modify a firewall's network settings using Panorama? One of those Panorama questions. Is it templates, device groups, syslog scrapes, or tech support bundle? Five seconds. 3, 2, 1, go. All right. And the answer is templates. Very good. 60% had that correct. 34% went for device groups, and that is controlling the security policies on the firewalls. So the way that Panorama is managing the firewalls, it splits up the device and networking configuration of the firewall and the security policies on the firewall into two different configuration objects called templates and device groups. All right, next question, number 4. What will happen to decrypted web traffic from the inside to the outside zone? And we see a screenshot with a little configuration, which is a security policy. So what happens to the decrypted web traffic from the inside to the outside? Ten seconds. 5, 3, 2, 1, go. All right. The correct answer, of course, is allow. Oh, big majority had that right. Very well done. Now, the traffic is in, the question is in here because the application web browsing, as you can see in the outbound allow rule, is allowed on the application default port, and that sometimes causes some problems. Every application that our firewall recognizes comes with a default port for web browsing that is port 80. However, if web browsing is coming in on port 443 when it's encrypted in SSL, after decryption, we see the application now is web browsing, but we still see the port is port 443. And in older versions of the software, we would actually then block the traffic. Only since about 1.5 years, we changed the behavior of the firewall, saying that for some key applications, we now know that it sometimes comes in on encrypted ports and made those encrypted ports part of the application default service. So about 2 years ago, the answer to this question was deny. And now it is allow, telling you that the test is evolving together with the operating system. All right, next question, please. Number 5. Which of the following takes precedence for determining a packet's routes? Typical networking question. Give you 10 more seconds, speeding up here. 5, 3, 1, gone. Okay, the correct answer, of course, is policy-based forwarding. Oh, we had a quite almost even split. So the administrative distance that a lot of people picked here, that is the tool that allows a router, which we have built into our firewall, to figure out what is the best routing protocol. However, policy-based forwarding comes before the normal routing. So number 4 is the best answer. Metric, of course, is the number, can't find a word. Let's stick to number. That describes what inside a routing protocol is the best route. So if there are multiple paths to the same network, then the metric tells you what path is the best. Equal cost multipath is supported now for a couple of years for having multiple default routes. You can use both of them at the same time. Okay, let's go to question 6. Oh yeah, this is a nice one. Look at the picture. We have a server, and the administrator of that server, so he's logged onto that server, wants to ping the loopback interface on the firewall. What do you need to configure? Now, this is a difficult one. Give you 10 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Let's go and see what's the correct answer. The correct answer is number 2. And exactly half of you had that right. So where is that coming from? Well, look at some details here. Number 1, you want to ping a loopback interface on the firewall, which means the firewall has to accept a ping and respond to it on one of its own layer 3 interfaces. That means you have to configure a management profile, which rules out number 1 and number 4. Then you see the traffic goes from the zone trust to the zone trust management, to different zones. That means there has to be a security rule involved. That basically already tells you the answer is number 2. But on top of that, the traffic has to go from router A to router B. In our firewalls, we can have multiple virtual routers, and it is possible to send traffic from one router to another, but that will require static routing on both. So that's why number 2 is the only correct answer. All right, let's do one more, and then we probably are running out of time. Number 7, what is the purpose of an application override rule? An app override, what does it do? Okay, 5 more seconds. 3, 2, 1, go. So the correct answer is number 3, an app override rule. And it's funny, here a lot of people got the wrong answer. An app override rule in our firewall basically allows you to say, if traffic looks like this, and then you can specify source and destination IP address, protocol, and port numbers, then we're going to give that traffic this application name. And then once the firewall notices that this traffic has this application name, in your security policy, you can now say, I'm going to allow this application through the firewall. Okay, so it is not modifying the default port. It is not modifying the protocol. It is not telling what is allowed or denied, because that's done by the security policy. It just gives the traffic a name of an application, and we can act on that. By the way, since a couple of minutes ago, we talked about the content ID engine. If you want to overrule the content ID engine, then application override rules are the trick, because you could create an application override rule for all your TCP traffic and all your UDP traffic, give it a certain name, and if you do that, traffic catched by an application override rule can bypass the content ID engine. So all of the antivirus, anti-malware, and all the other beautiful tools we have in our firewall will be bypassed. So application override rules are tricky, sometimes useful, but typically not too often used. All right, I think that was all the time I had.
Yes, thank you so much, Hank. That was fantastic. I hope everybody enjoyed going through those questions and learned a little bit more about the type of questions and topics that are going to be covered on the PCNSE certification exam. I'm going to move forward and talk a little bit about resources that are available. We've had a number of questions in the Q&A about this topic. We have a lot of different resources that individuals can use in order to prepare. So we have we have a learning management system called Beacon, and on the learning management system, customers, partners, and others can all obtain access to digital learning in that system. You would use a single sign-on account if applicable, and you would go to this digital learning site, and there are any number of courses available. I've had a few questions about the EDU 110 course, which was the digital equivalent of the 210 course historically. It has now been broken into a number of different digital course units. So it's been broken down into smaller learning opportunities. So as you look at our exam blueprint, you'll go through that blueprint and say, hey, I know a whole lot about this topic, but I might need to know more about this topic. So go to that Beacon site, look at our digital learning opportunities there, and you will likely find material specific to the areas in which you need to study more. So definitely take advantage of that digital learning. We also have instructor-led training from our authorized training partners. We had a number of questions about do we have authorized trainers? And we do. Please, you can find them on our Palo Alto Networks website. Just look for instructor-led training, and it will give you a list of the ATPs. You can also get hands-on experience. And we have a list of location here where you can go to get that hands-on experience with dedicated labs as an example. Next slide. We also have a study guide available. The study guide walks through the different domains, tasks, and subtasks that you find in the blueprint. Spells out specific material that you can refer to. It can also provided a number of links to different resources. We have a practice exam available from our Palo Alto Network certification webpage for the PCNSE as well as other certifications. And then we always have Pan OS or Palo Alto Networks new feature guides that are available for individuals as well. So hopefully these will help you along with the information that Hank gave in preparing. So how do you register to actually take the exam? We currently have the opportunity to do online proctored exams from the safety and security of your home. You would go to Pearson VUE. The link is provided here. And as indicated in the beginning of this presentation, we will be posting this presentation in a few days. So you'll be able to see this information. So you're going to go to Pearson VUE. You're going to click to sign on or create an account if you've not already been established with Palo Alto Networks as a test taker. You're going to select the PCNSE exam and then make sure you choose online proctor. That's going to let you take the exam from the safety of your home or office. When you get to the payment required screen, that is where you're going to do your payment, but that is also where you're going to use this promo code that I'm going to share on the next slide. Once you're complete with the process, you will be sent an email with the link confirmation of your appointment time and some of the things that you need to do to make sure that your environment is prepared to do that online proctoring. If you're a partner or employee, please use your company name in order for them to be able to track you through the Next Wave Partner Program or for our managers internally to track the employees. Next slide, please. So what's next? This is what you guys have been waiting for. This is the promo code. So use the code EngineerSpring50 when you are registering at Pearson VUE. That option comes up on the very last screen as you're doing the payment. It will say, do you have a promo code or voucher? Click on that promo code, enter EngineerSpring50, and you will get 50% off of the online proctored PCNSE exam. That promotion code is valid from today through April 30th, 2021. You must register and sit that exam by April 30th, 2021 in order to benefit from that discount. Next slide. So there are a number of ways for individuals to stay engaged with us. We have, as I mentioned, the Beacon Learning for you. We have digital learning, instructor-led training information. We have a lot of information and links to FAQs, the practice exams, the study guides from our Palo Alto Network certification page. We have a live community. We have lots of technical documentation. As hopefully most of you found us, we have the LinkedIn education page, Palo Alto Networks Education, which will be the location where you'll find additional webinars that are coming up. And then, of course, you can go to Pearson VUE OnView for to register for your exam. Next slide. So what's new? I just want to let you know we'll be posting this webinar for today by March 26, 2021. And do look on our LinkedIn education page, Palo Alto Networks education page, for upcoming webinars. We have a PCCSE, which is the Prisma Cloud Certified Security Engineer certification webinar coming up in the next few weeks. We also have a webinar in the works for the Palo Alto Networks Certified Security Automation Engineer. We look forward to seeing you at those future events. And with that, Alex.
Yes, thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Hank. Thank you, Danya, for presenting so far. And thank you to the over 300 participants that we have on board right now. So drum roll for the 10 winners are, and you can go to the, oh, the slide did not update. So the 10 winners are going to be Aldo Escobar, Gil Evangelista, Jeremy Krug, Mahash Mahan, Carol Jonas, Ty Rivers, Sarah Ramoni, Emil Kalhara, Jace Hicks, and Zarin Tosman. So I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong. But after this webinar, we will either reach out via LinkedIn or you will receive an email with the email that you registered for the webinar, and we will send it through the Palo Alto Networks email. And it will have a voucher code for you. So again, thank you to all the participants for attending to this point. And you saw the promo code previously in the webinar, and now these 10 participants get a free one. So next, we are going to cover some last Q&A that did not get answered throughout the presentation. Thank you. And so Danya, Melissa, is there any questions or that we need to answer with the group here?
Frank, there were a number of questions about ideas on getting hands-on experience. Do you have some ideas towards that? I know we're going to provide one link as an example, but aside from actually being in our instructor-led training courses, in which we do labs, what are some other ideas around lab training?
Yeah, that's a tough one because we ourselves do not provide labs. I know some training partners do provide additional lab time when you take a class with them. So you take a class, let's say the firewall basics training that takes 5 days, and you get a month access or something like that. I know some of them do that. And there are some players out there, and we had a link to them in the resources slide, which provide lab access without taking classes. So there are some options there, but that is a tough one, to be honest. And especially since we do not have demo devices, downloadable virtual machines for demos and things like that. That doesn't exist. Now, if you are with if you're a Palo Alto Networks customer or a Palo Alto Networks partner, then make sure you reach out to your Palo Alto Networks representative, because these people do have the magical power to issue temporary licenses. But besides that, you have to search the web for some lab or sign up for a class.
Great, thanks, Hank.
Melissa, Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say there's a question about if I pass the PCNSE, would that update my PCNSA? That question has been asked multiple times.
Yeah, so I see that
Sorry.
question. So so the PCNSE, if you take the PCNSE, it does count towards your PCNSA renewal. But those are the only two questions at this, the only two certifications at this time that have that kind of relationship.
There is also a question of, will there be a blueprint for PCNSE like there is for our other engineer exams? And the answer to this one is in future versions, there will be a blueprint as well as update to the study guide. And another reminder, we will be sharing the link to this recording at the end of next week, and you can find that on LinkedIn. And we will also post it on our certification page at paloaltonetworks.com.
Sarah, if you want to go back to the promo so everybody can see it one more time, we will also be posting it on our LinkedIn page. So rest assured, if you did not grab it here, that you will be able to see it on our website. We did answer over 160 questions. We have some questions that we will go back to and type up the answer for, and as it's mentioned before, we will post them on our LinkedIn as well. So with that, thank you so much for everyone. Thank you all for attending, and we look forward that you sit for that exam and earn that certification. Special thanks to Hank and Joel, and thank you all. Have a great day.